friends here. I mean, clearly, I haven't got anything to back this up other than my own intuition. You know, what I can pick from the evidence here, because I mean, clearly these caves were around at the end of the last ice age, and if there is a possibility that the manufactured areas of them, you know, any chambers, were done before the Pyramid Age, then quite clearly this could go back all the way. I mean, this could be, and my hunch is that we are dealing with something that was going on in Egypt at the end of the last ice age, around 11,000 BC, and I suggest that there was activity going on in this area. Plato gives this exact time frame, basically, for activity going on in Egypt. And of course, obviously, this sort of echoes in the works that he did relating to Atlantis, of course. I'm not saying there's a direct link there, but and certain ancient writers talk about the same time frame as you know, some kind of catastrophe or something, or the beginning of some kind of era or aeon or age or something like this, you know, before the current one. And
I mean, just to quickly also emphasize this point, or remind people who are listening as well. We talked about this on a previous show, but some of the oldest art that has been found in Egypt is believed to be around 15,000 years old, and actually has more similarities to some of the Neolithic, cave painting art. Of again, this symbol of the cow obviously is very prominent here as well. So that shows, just as you say, Andrew, that indeed there has been activity there for a long, long time.
Absolutely, and as I said, to start understanding the caves that have been discovered so far, I think it's almost important to look outside of Egypt, or certainly outside of dynastic Egypt, and yes, to start looking at the symbolism of the painted caves in southern Egypt, for instance, and in other parts of Central Africa, and even to start looking towards the beliefs of cultures who may have some remnant of complicated wisdom and knowledge traditions that go back, 10, maybe even 15,000 years. And the one people that I do believe that we should be looking very, very closely at is the Dogon of Mali. The reason I say that, not only because of the work of people like Robert Temple in the Sirius Mystery, but the work of Laird Scranton in his book, The Science of the Dogon, shows clear overlaps between the most sacred ancient wisdom of the Egyptians and that found within the oral traditions of the Dogon of Mali. But also, just recently, within the past 5 years, the oldest pottery in Africa was discovered at the very same location where the Dogon live today, and in the Bendagari Hills, of Mali. There have been archaeological work going on, and they date basically back to 11 to 12,000 years ago. So again, this is right at the end of the last ice age, and is contemporary with the rise of the first, agricultural communities of the Near East, which is something else that I've studied very closely to do with the origins of Eden in southeast Turkey, the oldest temple of the world, Göbekli Tepe, which is near the city of Urfa in southeast Turkey. These are other areas of study that I'm working on. But remaining in Africa, my hunch says to me that we should be looking at people like the Dogon for some clues as to what the true symbolism and wisdom of the caves is in Giza.
Well, that's very interesting. We've had, as you might know, and we've had both Laird with us here recently, and we've also actually interviewed the main archaeologist at Göbekli Tepe, Klaus Schmidt. So this is very timely, so to speak, obviously. But even so, if we talk about the word Göbekli Tepe, I was actually reminded of that since this southern hill. Let me see if I can find that now in my notes here. Actually, even word-wise, today have a similar name. Maybe you can even remind me of that as we speak here. Let's see if I can find that.
Yeah. Okay, well, I can take it from here.
Gebel Gibli, that's what it's called, right?
Yeah. Gebel Gibli is the modern Arab name for a very prominent hill just to the south of the Sphinx. It's a few hundred meters to the south of the Sphinx. Now, some people call this the fourth pyramid. It's so prominent. And what we've discovered is that almost certainly it was the foundation point for the creation of the pyramid field at Egypt. It was the original survey point. And quite recently, the American Egyptologist and archaeologist Mark Lehner did a survey of the whole plateau again. And he began that survey by going up onto Gebel Gibli and doing this. However, we've looked into the origins of this hill and have found that it actually bears much older names. It wasn't just known as the Southern Hill, because obviously that really just refers to the fact that it's to the south of the plateau. It was originally known as Tafaya, a word which I was told specifically means the place of the beginning, or the first place, i.e. the place where things began. And if this doesn't just mean it's like the entrance point onto the plateau, then I think it has much more sacred connotations. The site is also called El Hadba, which basically means the high place. And that also has sacred connotations. For instance, there's a place with a similar name in Petra in Jordan. And this is a place that I have proposed in books, was the original Mount Sinai. Because, you know, the actual true traditions that with Moses are probably much more to be connected with the area of Petra on the borders between Jordan and Palestine, Israel, than they are with the area of the modern peninsula of Sinai, believe it or not. But anyway, that's a different story. But this southern hill, Gebel Gibli, Tafaya, El Hadba, all of these seem to indicate that this was the original point of survey. And there is a stela, a text carved in granite that lies between the two pores of the Great Sphinx at Giza.
Right, yeah.
That was actually erected by the pharaoh Thutmose IV. And it records how he basically cleared away the sand from around the Sphinx. And the Sphinx said to him, you know, look, if you clear away this sand, I'll make you king. And he did become king. And this is the story that's given on that stela. But there are certain statements within this stela which are crucial. And it refers to that basically, you know, the place of the first time. And the context in which it's talking about, it's a location somewhere in the vicinity of the Sphinx. And I'm dead certain that it's talking about Gebel Gibli. You know, the way it's said, the context it's said, almost certainly it relates to Gebel Gibli, just to the south of the Sphinx. It's no coincidence that the Sphinx is, the head of the Sphinx is due north of the summit of Gebel Gibli. Right. I mean, perfectly due north.
Yeah. So it seems to be, at this point, if we look at it, it's like what has been used is probably then natural landmarks or mounds, or do you think that this might be constructed as well? Actually, what's your take on that?
What, Gebel Gibli?
Yeah.
Now that's a natural mound, no questions about that at all.
Natural mound.
But what's interesting is that at the base of it is this holy well, which I mentioned earlier on.
Yes. Which
is said to be another entrance into the cave underworld. And I think there is a possibility that the Edfu building texts are actually referring to this well. I mean, it clearly refers to a well. There doesn't seem to be any doubt about that.